If you've been gaming the past half a decade, chances are you've played a Souls-like, or at least heard of one. FromSoftware's accidental subgenre of action RPG gameplay spread like wildfire, and like it or not, Souls-likes are currently one of the most popular, recognizable, and distinct game styles, ranging from weird, distorted fantasies to murky nightmarish sci-fi, to yokai-infested feudal Japan, to Old Testament Catholic penitence. FromSoftware has to be one of the most beloved studios in gaming right now, with the release of Elden Ring in 2022 being highly successful, the revival of the Armored Core series last year, and the upcoming Shadow of the Erdtree expansion generating a whole bunch of hype. We've talked about them a lot here on the channel, and eventually I will do an episode or two just on my feelings about them, so I'm not going to give a whole lot of preamble. But whereas I'm usually bringing them up in a more critical light, tonight I'm here to talk about something of theirs that I just straight up love. Sekiro. To be so successful in your medium that you invent a subgenre, that's achievement enough. But could you imagine being so creative and full of ideas that just for the hell of it, you successfully invent a subgenre of your subgenre? Well, FromSoft did it, and we're going to talk about that.
Everybody's gone to bed and sleep battle. We're up all night instead. Games and movies are our sweet reveries. We present 3 a.m. Soliloquies.
Alright, we did it. Now in 2019, hot off the success of Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, FromSoftware decided to try something a little different and put out Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. And it absolutely floored a lot of us in the gaming community. It superficially resembled their Souls games in layout and aesthetic style, but it was simultaneously very different. And not different in the way Bloodborne was, like actually different. So, to talk about how it was different, we first got to deal with what it was different from, the tried and true Souls-like formula. Exact definitions of Souls-likes vary, so we're going to boil it down for ourselves. The most important component is probably that your progression is linked to, hindered by, how often you die. In these games, when you defeat an enemy, you'll get souls depending on how strong the enemy was. They're called different things in different games, but they all serve as your XP, and in some games your currency. Unlike most games where you level up automatically, in Souls-likes, you can only spend your souls to level up at checkpoints, which again look different in all the games, but these are the spots where you'll respawn if you die, and resting at them brings back all the enemies you've killed. So in order to beef up, you've got to bring these souls back to the checkpoint, but the fuckery is that when you die, you lose all of them. If you make it back to where you died, you can get them back, but you're up shit creek if you die before getting them, because at that point, they're gone forever. This is the primary loop of the Souls game. 1. Find checkpoints. 2. Kill enemies to get souls. 3. Bring souls back to checkpoints to level up. And 4. If you die, don't die again before you get your souls back. The one other important thing is the stamina bar. Again, the exact name varies, but there will usually be a meter linked to in-game actions like sprinting and attacking that's there to make sure that you can't just attack or block indefinitely. Its sole purpose is to handicap the player, forcing you to be patient and strategic in combat. And if you forget to check up, you'll check out instead. Ouch. Souls games are known for their challenge, but that last bit is what makes them unique. Your punishment for making mistakes is that you don't get stronger, and for this reason, Souls-likes are often more of a test of patience than your skill. For some people that's fun, for others it's a frustrating hassle, but for most people it's somewhere between the two. Many find that the frustration makes the victory all the sweeter, and therein lies the intoxicating masochistic pleasure of a Souls game. You know, it's really not hard to see why this style of game caught on. Like we've talked about before, it's very simple, which makes it pretty easy for anybody to pick up and understand. It's satisfying to figure out how you want to build up your guy. It rewards your player's skill and experience and their willingness to learn from their mistakes, and above all else, From's games are just really, really cool. Trying to figure out the lore behind these insane, ghoulish, fantastical worlds that you're fighting through every step of the way. But then Sekiro came out and From said fuck it to a lot of the rules that they themselves had created. You still had to go through this insane ghoulish world, still had to find checkpoints, but From players had some major adjustments to make in pretty much every other way. I mean, for one thing, you're only playing as one guy, the one-armed wolf, otherwise known as Sekiro, a disgraced shinobi with a prosthetic arm, who sets off to rescue his young master and dispel this mysterious curse that's plaguing the land. But one guy means one playstyle. Most From games let you choose how you want to make your guy with different abilities, armor, weapons, whatever. Not this one. You get a sword and a grappling hook, and that is it. And while you do find some other tools along the way, it doesn't change the fact that rather than inventing your own playstyle, you are forced to master one very specific, carefully crafted system. And that was a prospect that some Souls players naturally balked at. The second major change is that you don't have a stamina bar. Instead, you've got what they call posture, that fills only when you block attacks. This encourages you to be more aggressive with movement and attacking, since you can do it as much as you want. On the surface, you'd think this would make the game easier, but there's one problem. Every single enemy you encounter is on more coke than Rick James and more than capable of ending your game by themselves, even the grunts at the beginning. Everything will come at you hard and fast, throwing attacks and counters like they're the main character. When we first played this game, a lot of us expected feudal Japanese Dark Souls. Yeah, we got our asses feudally kicked, because this game is the total opposite of Dark Souls. Where one forces you to be slow, meticulous, and strategic, the other one demands that you deploy a constant all-out attack, only stopping to block. It's the biggest gameplay change possible from Dark Souls. And just to make fun of the fans even more, the instructions on how to correctly play the game are right in the tagline. Hesitation is defeat. It sure fucking is. Pinpoint parries or counters have been a staple of action games for many years, but the way Sekiro handled them is perhaps its biggest defining factor. Countering in Sekiro isn't a big special tide turner, it's the game. And this is probably the biggest thing that marks what's come to be referred to in some circles as the Sekiro-Like. You think a well-timed parry once is going to be enough to catch your enemies off guard? Yeah? Try 5, or 10, or 20. Like you, most of your enemies have a posture bar that fills either when you smack their guard or perform the perfectly timed deflection against one of their attacks. Fill their posture all the way, and you'll have a shot at a death blow that kills them instantly. Now that's satisfying. So naturally, one of the biggest skills you'll want to master in the game is the art of perfectly deflecting every combo with timely button presses, hence the rhythm game comparison people like to make. Easy, right? Now, enemies also have health bars that you can deplete by hitting the enemy itself rather than their guard. You'll usually be able to end the fight faster by depleting posture rather than health, because Sekiro isn't exactly a hard hitter, but hitting their health causes their posture to recover slower. So for tougher fights, you have to split focus between draining their health and filling their posture, because if you focus on one or the other, the fight either becomes too long or totally unwinnable. Whereas most Souls games are about the player finding clever ways around insurmountable challenge, whether that's specific builds or secret items or simply running off to get some more souls and get stronger, Sekiro just says, fuck that, you want to get stronger, you gotta beat the boss. Beating a bunch of mini-bosses levels your health, beating a big boss levels your attack. But that means the only way you can get stronger is by progressing in the game. It's completely grind-proof, and so the satisfaction in Sekiro works on a very different level. When you progress, it's because you genuinely just got better. FromSoft definitely knew that this game was going to give even its most skilled players a run for their money, and so they built in a couple of safeguards against death. For one thing, there's no souls in this game. Instead, you get points towards skill points, which you spend in a skill tree, and these you cannot lose by dying. Instead, you lose half of your progression towards your next skill point, and sometimes none of it. Also, currency is a separate thing in this game, and while you can lose that, there are ways of storing it, which is something that Dark Souls never offered. So, at least there's some mercy in this game, and we can see that another hallmark of the so-called Sekiro-Like is a de-emphasis on punishment for dying. The beauty of Sekiro is that the whole game is a series of pranks on its target audience. Used to customization? Nah, you're playing as one short king. Slow and methodic? Nah, over here, hesitation is defeat, bitch. Struggling with the boss? You wanna go grind some more? Nah, learn the ropes or play a different game. But learning the game, especially as a Souls fan, was a beautiful experience because as hard as it is, it's so fair. It's so much fairer than any From game before it, and if you pay attention, the game tells you exactly how to play it. One of my favorite examples is the Blazing Bull, which you encounter pretty early on, and you realize fairly quickly that standing there blocking is a one-way ticket back to the checkpoint. You throw yourself at it over and over, wondering how to beat it, when you remember, you don't have a stamina bar. Not only that, Sekiro is fast as shit, fast enough to actually keep up with the boss, and once you realize that, he's easy. And just like that, the game teaches you an incredibly valuable lesson about just how different it is from its predecessors. Sekiro is hard, even by From standards, like blaze your balls off hard, but it still manages to be very fun because it's just so tightly constructed. In removing the primary handicap from the player's plate, they ended up creating something completely new, a game with a totally different rhythm and energy than any of the Souls games prior. And thus did this new game gather up its own adherents as Souls did before it, and promptly begin to receive imitations of its rhythmic parry-based combat. More on that next time.